Well, hi everyone. I can see that we are now 25 participants. Maybe it's enough to start this breakout session. So first, thank you for coming, and I hope we will have very interesting exchanges all together. Um, I wanted to start, maybe presenting Susanne and myself that we will co-moderate this session. So I am Tevesia Ronzon from the JRC, the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, and I'm involved in activities of monitoring the bioeconomy. And Susanne Jost is working at the Sunan Institute in Germany, and she's also involved in monitoring activities in Germany. Um, so now I would like to explain a bit how we will proceed during this breakout session. You have probably already used Slido during the plenary, and we will still continue relying on Slido. That's why I have here opened the window, because we will use it not only for answering polls, but also we expect you to use the Q&A session in order to ask your questions and the other participants to like them. That way, the questions that will receive more likes will be considered like the more of the most interest for the participants, and we will prioritize.
So the majority is from Germany, actually. I'm sorry, I have to check how we present the results in the dry run. It worked well. So we have mostly scientists. 80% are scientists. 15 people have answered now out of almost 30, I believe. Then there are other. Um, is 13%, private sector 7%, and no politicians at all. So maybe the people that voted with other, maybe you could also give us a hint in the Q&A section what other means. What are you do? What do you do? What is your background?
So thanks you to all, and thank you, Susanne, for commenting. So now we will maybe enter into the question we joined for. We will still use this split of the governance that was presented by Janos during the introduction, in which he distinguished enabling governance, that would be all the actions that coordinates the coordination of actions in order to allow the development of the bioeconomy towards sustainability, and the constraining governance, that are the coordination of action in order to avoid that the bioeconomy provokes harmful effects on the environment, or on social grounds, etc. So the first question actually will be more on enabling governance. What could you do to make the bioeconomy develop? And then after, in next poll questions, we will tackle the sustainability and how to ensure that the bioeconomy is sustainable. So if you want, Susanne, you can launch the next question, and after we receive the results, then we will have a time for exchanges, and we will not always be just answering polls and polls. Yeah, so sorry, the first question is, what are the main barriers in your view to develop a sustainable and bio and circular economy in your region? We have heard, for example, in the US from the presentation of Diana, that investments in research and innovation, for example, are a barrier for the development of the bioeconomy in US. From Justus, he considered also that regulatory measures could be a hurdle for the development of the bioeconomy. The idea here is to understand a bit more what are the specific barriers for Europe and Northern Europe region. So your answer will appear as a word cloud with so please answer with one or maximum 3 words, and then we will see if some repeats, they will appear bigger. So we have already some answers concerning the cost and low fossil prices. I think those two answers are a bit related. They concern the relative price of bio-based products or bioenergy compared to the fossil ones. Low fossil prices has been voted more times than the rest. Missing CO2 tax is also a question of fiscality, biomass availability. Okay, 8 participants answered so far. We will wait a bit more time. And then for those that are willing to take the floor, I will encourage you to comment on your answer so that we can have a specific example of those barriers. Complexity, convenience, accessibility. I don't know if this was accessibility towards markets or towards biomass resources, or to accessibility to knowledge, or a bit of everything maybe.
If somebody wants to explain what he or she typed in, then just let us know in the Zoom chat. Or I think you can also unmute yourself and just start talking.
Yeah, okay. Okay, 11 participants. I see that for the moment, maybe 2 people answer low fossil prices. Maybe someone wants to comment on his answer. Biomass availability is also voted several times. In order to give us a specific example of a situation in which you face this barrier, or you heard someone face these barriers. I see. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Wiebke Jander from Germany. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well. Welcome.
Okay, so I typed in low fossil prices and biomass availability because during the summer I had interviews with a lot of bioplastics producers and also biochemicals producers in Germany. And these were the answers they gave me that they saw were the most important barriers. So on the one hand, it's consumers who are not willing to pay more for bioplastics because they substitute fossil plastics. And then for large companies like BASF, they have such large amounts that they are producing. They don't know where to get the biomass from. And also from smaller companies, there's a really shortage of polylactide, for example. It's produced in China, but the capacities are not sufficient right now.
Okay.
And Wiebke, what did they say on if the biomass is not there? What then naturally for me the question of circularity of recycling comes up. So the question would be what are the barriers to recycling plastics in a way?
We didn't talk so much about recycling, but right now, one or two interview partners, they said that the quality of the recycling material is not good enough sometimes. But it's considered for mattresses that are based on polyurethane, so PUR plastics. But it's very energy intensive also to do the recycling. But there are more barriers, I'm sure.
So recycling could not be a real solution for overcoming this biomass access. It would not be enough, if I understand well, and not of good quality.
Well, it has to be in a good quality so that the consumers also take on the bioplastics products, and they have to have a certain shape or color.
Okay.
So it's also the demand side.
And did the producers of bioplastics mention any solution that could be implemented to overcome this barrier?
No, not really.
Not
Sorry,
really.
we didn't talk about it.
No problem. Okay, so I will invite also the rest of the group to comment on what has been said now and propose solutions if they have in mind. Otherwise, also to comment on their answer to the poll. And we can then start collecting some illustrations of barriers and solutions. Okay. Um, someone put missing a CO2 tax. Can he elaborate on how to implement a CO2 tax? If you had in mind a national tax, an international tax, or a sectoral one, or give us some precisions.
It was me, Tivicia,
It
actually.
was you.
And I think it's more in the sense of low fossil prices, because this is going together in a way. So yeah, I think this is the problem. And especially, I mean, in the plenary, we just also discussed the effects of bioeconomy in the global north on economies in general in the global south. And I think if we in our project in the bioeconomy monitoring for Germany, we also discussed the problems of commodities, because our economy relies very much also on import of biomasses into Germany. And the question always is, what do we, I mean, we can build a green economy here in Germany, but then we import, I don't know, timber or whatever from other countries and cause, severe effects there. So this should be taken into account. And of course, part of the question of how useful it is to transport lots of biomass from far away to Europe, then fossil, if we had a good tax on CO2, it would help that these effects would not be so severe, in my opinion. So that was the background of this question, or what I typed of my
Yeah.
contribution.
Okay, thank you. And someone that wants to comment on the needs of companies, for example, or the fact that regulations are a barrier. And if you are too shy, then it's not a problem. We will continue with next poll, because it seems that you're more willing to answer polls. Nobody wanting to speak out loud? Okay. Oh, and it's already 5:30, and we have to reconvene in 5:44. So maybe we can go directly to the questions that were dealing with the risks to develop an unsustainable bioeconomy and how to avoid those risks. Susanne, can you put this question on risk? And we will ask you again to answer with a few words in order to generate the word cloud.
I think I activated it.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, it's not working
Sorry,
well
I will
on
try
my
again. Okay, now, can you see it?
Yeah, so again, I stay neutral. Yeah. I have to
Again,
enter
we would
switch.
say like 2 minutes time. Take your time to think. And it would be nice if you could see what you think.
So in terms of risks, again, the panel in the plenary session mentions this relation between north and south, and the fact that also we can source ourselves from the south and maybe provoke land grabbing, etc. Okay, I will let you speak now and comment more on your answers. Limited biomass supply. Should I understood that this is limited domestic biomass supply within the region or globally, and that we are already living beyond the planet's limits? Biomass production is a barrier. Is it because agricultural and fishery production has a negative impact on the environment? Waste management, maybe this has to be related what has been said earlier on recycling. The quality of the waste that is recycled is not always good, or we do not recycle enough. Well, if someone wants to comment on his answer, I would be happy to have your first-hand comments instead of trying to interpret, because maybe I'm misinterpreting, in fact. High product price.
I can comment on.
Thank you, Christoph.
I put limited biomass supply. I think this is both domestic and global. That we, of course, need supply for a sustainable and circular bioeconomy, but at the same time, we need the ecosystems to preserve biodiversity, and we need the ecosystems to as CO2 sinks. So these other two key tasks speak in favor of very low harvesting. And so that will limit the supply if we want to preserve enough biodiversity and have ecosystems also as CO2 sinks. At the same time, we have to and want to use them at least to some extent for a sustainable bioeconomy. And that I think that makes the circular aspect absolutely key, because only through very good cascades and recycling and downcycling systems of a circular bioeconomy, we can make a lot of products from a very limited supply. And that also, of course, puts in question that bioenergy, we need, I think, in bioeconomy, we really need to prioritize products and have bioenergy only made from waste and residues which are not usable for products. Otherwise, we will never reach a circular economy in bioeconomy.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And I'm just speaking out loud and not on the behalf of the European Commission, for which I work. I'm speaking in my person. Circularity and more resource efficiency are of course part of the solution. Maybe there are also ways of reducing our consumption and avoid the consumption of natural resources from the beginning. But then I'm not sure there are regulatory measures in that sense, because you cannot ask the citizens, you cannot push the citizens not to consume. It would be maybe considered anti-democratic in our societies, where we consider everyone can consume whatever he likes if he can afford for it. Or maybe I'm going too far.
If I may,
yeah.
I may interrupt. If you can hear me, Teresia.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, but yes. To what you said, you cannot force people to consume something, to do tax like we do sometimes with sugar tax or other things. So you can do something from a regulatory perspective.
To avoid consumption, you mean?
Yeah. It's a bit harsh to say avoid consumption, but yes, to direct consumption.
Okay.
And I wanted to add one more thing. I say sustainable sources,
okay,
right? Sustainable sources. It's related to what was just mentioned about the biomass supply. I think we really need to be careful to not export the environmental risks to other areas of the planet, because we might have a lot of regulatory measures to produce biomass sustainably, maybe in the European Union or elsewhere, but if we just source not sustainably produced biomass from elsewhere, we're just exporting the risk to a different region. So I'm not sure what could be done on that, but I assume it has to do with trade and regulatory measures there.
I think what could be a measure in that sense would be to take care more of sustainable supply chains. From my background in sustainability management, I know that there's quite, at least in Germany, there's quite a lot of effort from the private sector, actually, from startups, but also from larger firms that are really making an effort in trying to make their supply chains sustainable. And we also have the AUTR, the trade regulation that on illegal logging, which is supposed to do something against illegal logging. So we have some means in place, but still, of course, it's always a question of also of the demand side. If people don't want to buy this, then it's not really working out. But from my experience in Germany, I actually am hopeful, because many people starting to question where the products come from, or where the resources in those products come from. So I think it's also the demand side and information, and consumer information is also a important part in order not to export our bioeconomy risks to other countries.
Yes, thank you. And this let me saying that I don't know if you've had time to look at the videos that were posted on the webpage of this workshop. And there was one in particular that related to the trace study, in which the researchers trace the different actors involved in the supply chain, in this case of soy and main commodities, main agricultural commodities. And they also compare from where those commodities are sourced, and these maps of deforestations, etc., in order to be able to say to governments or even importers, be careful, you are importing from these exporting companies that is sourced from an area that is fragile or under deforestation. And the guess those researchers are doing is that by informing and by giving more information to all actors, then people will be more conscious on what they buy and from where they are sourced, and maybe they will by themselves correct some externalities, negative externalities of the whole trade system.
Sorry, I also liked this video about trace, and I was also going to say that this, I think this is a better solution than tax, because taxes on forest products or others will not comply with world trade regulations, and this is just not possible. I think what I find difficult about the trace database, or I didn't quite understand if I can also trace the soy that is used for my meat. So that, soy is maybe imported by the Netherlands and then brought to Germany, and then here it is fed to produce meat. And I'm not sure if the tool can really show all these interrelated trade relationships.
Okay, you mean that maybe one part of the whole trade chains is missing. Once it enters one European country, we do not know if there is intra-EU trade.
Yes.
Yeah.
For example.
That's a comment that could be made to the researchers. That's true.
Yeah, this is also what we experienced in the bioeconomy monitoring project, our colleagues from market analysis. The problem is that if it enters the EU via the Netherlands, and then you don't really know where it really comes from. So it's, if you look at Germany, you see it's from Netherlands, and it's really difficult to split where it really comes from. So, but this is also something we have to keep in mind for future monitoring. And which is a good bridge to the next question, I would guess, because we don't have so much time left. Tive says that if that's okay, I would launch the next
please
question.
Go on.
Yes, there it is.
Okay, so what are the strengths and weaknesses of monitoring and scenario tools to support policy and governance? Please answer first on the strengths, and then the same question will appear with the weaknesses. So we will do the two questions in a row. An example of strengths, but you're not obliged to agree with me, was this fact that by documenting what's going on, then we are better aware of what has to be corrected and what can be pushed, improved, etc. During also the plenary, Justus mentioned the use of ex-ante modeling in order to test some policy shocks and see what would be the implications of a new policy on the bioeconomy, for etc. Sorry, if I do not answer myself, we will never see. So among the strengths is the reality is too complex for models. So is it a strength or a weakness? Numbers are easy to compare. That's true. Research, traceability of products, transparency, knowledge, ignorance, awareness. We have now 7 participants, minus myself, 6 that have answered. I don't know if we wait for 1 or 2 more answers or if we go directly to the weaknesses. I'm not sure we will have more answers because it's not moving. Yes, 1 more. See big and key points. Okay, yeah, monitoring to have the big picture and the main trends. Okay, I think we can go to the next
one.
Yeah.
Good. So now to the weaknesses. Okay.
Here's back to reality is too complex for models. Yeah, it's in a way it's compatible with the first answer that was on the one hand you can see the big picture, but on the other hand you cannot follow the real complexity with monitoring and scenario tools. I'm thinking also about the comment made by Justus that according to the quality of the data you have, then, well, garbage in, garbage out. So it can be also a weakness if you do not have the appropriate data to feed your monitoring system or scenarios. So a weakness is engage society and private sector. This I'm not sure I understand. If someone wants to clarify in why monitoring and scenarios are a weakness at the time of engaging society. Definition of bioeconomy not aligned, and that is very, very true. In spite of having an EU bioeconomy strategy and an EU definition, this is true that every member state has its own specificities, its own priorities, its own resource endowment, and of course, then the definition are slightly different across, or slightly, or sometimes highly different across member states. Please do not hesitate to speak out loud if you want to give some clarification to your answer, because we have just last 1 minute before we go back to the main session, the main room.
So the weakness of the monitoring system would be that it's not able to engage society and the private sector. Is that, I'm really interested in that comment. So because of course we are trying to publish monitoring results and to work with it also with the interested public, but still, if I get it correctly, it's really the question, what does it monitoring is of use for policy and for scientists, but the question is, does it really help establishing bioeconomy? Okay.
No answer. Well, it has been so fast. I thought we would have time to exchange a bit more, but I will thank you all for having been here. And I think it's now time to come back to the main session. I hope you have not closed your tab. In that case, it would be easier for you to go back to the main room. Otherwise, you will have to log in again and go through the same process you did before the breakout sessions.
Thank you very much to all of you. And yeah,
Thank you for the moderation.
thank you.
Thanks to you. I think I will close the room anyway. Or Susanna, should we exchange before?
We
or-
can just, yeah, just stay. Let's stay, and then we can check
Okay,
if we, how we, yeah, what we show in the plenary now.
Yeah.
Good idea. So I will close the poll first. So Therese, do we want me to export something, or shall I share my screen, or do you want to just share the slide that you made? Wrap up.
I'm hesitating because on the one hand, on the word clouds, 80% has not been explained. And on the other hand, on my notes, 80% of what was answered in the word cloud are
Okay.
not visible.
So maybe we just show the word clouds, and
Yeah.
we can, and you add on the, I share my screen, show the word clouds, and you add what you
Okay.
wrote down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Thank you, Susanna, for helping
Thank
me
you.
with.
So
I'm happy that you
people
had your mic finally.
Yes.
It was easier for me.
Okay. So good. I'm leaving now.
Okay.
And we'll be back in the main room, and then
With
I
the
will
word
try to
cloud.
share the screen with the results.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.